Friends, colleagues and listeners, quick announcement, a live face-to-face conference at long last. 5th to the 7th of September, it's going to be at the Grand Hyatt in Athens, and I'm talking about the Air Cargo Handling Logistics Conference, which also has Air Freight Pharma in association with Cool Chain, AGS, Airline Ground Services, in association with ASA, Leadership Forum, and on top of that, we've got ULD Care. Des Fatanis is going to be the chairman, myself and Stan Rafe, co-moderators. Hard talk, direct questions, great panel, great speakers. Please join us, and all details are shown below in the link. Friends, colleagues and listeners, here we are, special little podcast. And the reason I say special is because we've got two special guests. And also it's got a lot of reference to the upcoming conference in Athens, which takes place on the 5th, 6th and 7th. Now, we've got a certain flavour to this particular podcast because the people I'm going to introduce in a couple of minutes, not only have they got a very important position within their own organisations, but they also represent a body which I'm sure everybody's heard of, and if not, they will do now very shortly. So the people I'm talking about is Sally Leible, who's the CEO for ATS, Airport Terminal Services, and she's also a board member of ASA. Sally, welcome on board. Lovely to have you.
Thank you.
And Janis, who's also a board member of ASA, but he's equally the regional CEO for Airport Ops with Dnata. So, Janis, lovely to see you again, my friend.
Good to see you, Chris.
Great. Now, I mentioned earlier, and I was talking to Salem, our industry, the world, every time you turn the news on or open a newspaper, it's bad news, bad news, bad news. And I said to him, we've got to start talking about some good news. So who better than Sally and Janis to kick us off with some good news, which is desperately, desperately needed in this industry. So, again, for all the listeners, we're not going to be talking too much about your direct roles within your respective companies, but your roles as board members within ASA. So for those who don't know, ASA, Airport Services Association, and what I'd like to do to kick off and let you both just introduce yourselves as to what you do is just please give us a little brief as to what you do within ASA and why you find it so rewarding to be part of that particular association. So Sally, we'll start with you first, please.
Very good. Thank you. Good morning from St. Louis, Missouri. I'm Sally Leible, and I serve as the CEO of Airport Terminal Services. But today I am mostly representing the board of ASA. And I have sat on this board for quite a long time because it is so dynamic and so energizing to be part of a worldwide association that represents all corners of the world and all sizes of ground service providers. So it's uniquely situated to fly the flag of ground service providers.
Brilliant. And Sally, I have to apologise there. I think I pronounced your name as Leible instead of Leible.
I have forgiven you.
Yeah. quite a big difference in the two pronunciations. So I do apologise there. No. But yeah, thank you so much. And having spoken to you, your genuine enthusiasm and engagement is wonderful. So thanks for that. Now, Janis.
Hi, good evening from Dubai, UAE. I look after emerging markets for Dnata Airport Operations. This is a widespread from Asia down to South Africa and South America. So, but today, again, just like Sally, I'm representing ASA in capacity of the board member. I joined the board 1.5 years ago. Replacing Steve Allen, who became our group CEO. And I believe very much in ASA because we do represent ground handlers and we need a strong association that will represent interests of this large and important sector in aviation supply chain. Without that, we're on our own. And as we saw very much during COVID-19, it does not work.
Yeah. Yep, no, 100%. Now, right, both of you now are so what I say? You're both leaders in your own organisations, which is important that that's carried over into the association. So, looking at the way things are in the industry at the moment, Okay, can you give a little picture as to why it's important that a particular sector or segment of the industry comes together and is represented as a whole rather than lots and lots of individual organizations? So perhaps, Janis, if you can kick us with that one.
Because coming together gives us leverage, gives us power. We represent huge amount of workforce. We are very diverse in our geographies, just like maybe similar to airports. We represent local communities. In every airport, we are local. And that gives us a scale to influence the regulation, which of course, I'm sure we're going to talk about later, is coming our way as well. And it gives us an opportunity to influence the way the industry is transforming and how our say. Individually, we might be influential in some of the markets, some of the players, but that gives us no chance to have a standardized approach.
Yeah. Okay, right. Thanks very much, Janis. And Sally, with regard to one of the biggest issues that's affecting not just our industry, but it seems to be across all boundaries and all different sectors, is recruitment. And so I'm sure that's a major issue within ASA's agenda for what they want to address and how they can support all parties within the association.
Absolutely, and it is a very big part of the conference that we have planned in Athens is different approaches and strategies and plan of attacks, if you will, on how to make sure that this segment of the industry, supplying the ground services for airlines and airports, is a welcomed community and an exciting community. When I joined, I did because the airport community was so exciting. It was my little town, right? And I knew everybody, I knew all the different airlines, all the concessions, all the airports, and we need to go back to that. We need to make it an exciting opportunity for young people to enter this segment of the business.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Sally. I think it's time that we were able to, in whatever way, just make people fall in love with the game again and, be proud to be part of that particular sector. So have either of you got any ideas on how things can be done differently? Because obviously at the moment, there seems to be, there's a huge rush just to get bums on seats to fill positions. And in many cases then line trainers have to be on the ground rather than giving people the proper induction and pre-operational training. Do you think that those pressures are going to be taken a little bit more seriously and do something different rather than, to rush just to get bums on seats?
Is that for me or Janis? Yes, please take it.
Either of it. It's open to either of you, anytime, any question.
Yeah. Please go, Janis.
Yeah, I think from our perspective, we have a global footprint. And while this is a very hot issue, we also see that this is a typical, if I could paraphrase it, first world problem. We have markets where we do not have the issue to get not only bumps on seats, but actually there's a competition to get to work for us. So where we see the first world, it's a very different, particularly Europe, North America, is a big problem. And of course, there is no one quick fix there, because if you look at the employee life cycle, we're losing a lot of people who actually would like to work for us just because they can't wait to get their clearance, security clearance. So by the time they get that, they've already moved on, right? And then after the induction training, of course, then people realize if it's for them, if it's not for them. And the thing is that to be more appealing for young generation, we have to rethink how we recruit, how we communicate, where we communicate, and how do we make it more attractive? Because I have 3 teenage daughters, and their values are not the brands. Their values are actually the company's values. So if the company's values matches theirs, they'll be very loyal.
Yep.
No matter what the brand, if the values don't match, they won't. So it's changed, I think, from the generations before, where people used to work for the brands and get employment and stay there as long as possible.
Yeah, no, there's a big shift and a big difference, which is something, as you say, Janis, needs to be addressed. Now, as far as costs, okay, just recently now, Willie Walsh said to everybody, you need to prepare yourselves because airfares are going to remain high for some time. Okay, now, in your side of the business, and Janis, I know we spoke about this many moons ago, the apparent or the pre-COVID spiral to the bottom, where people were reluctant to say no to certain requests and to say no to certain downward leveraging on pricing. Do you think now that there's going to be some reality and recognition of the cargo organisation structures and infrastructure that has been put into place by most of the cargo handlers? Do you think that's going to start reflecting now in a, shall we say, a more realistic price model?
I think you refer to the airlines discovering the value of cargo handling providers during COVID, right?
Yeah, everybody.
Yeah. So I think that, trying to be positive, I hope so. I think it's to a large degree also dependent on us ourselves. We have to be proud in what we're doing and be. It takes two to tango. So if we don't allow the race to the bottom ourselves, and then I think there's a high chance that this will also not be to the same extent it was before. As any customers, you buy when you see value, right?
Yep.
We do it ourselves. So we see markets where we maintain high level of service delivery, and customers are ready to pay, and they do pay whatever it's necessary because they see the value. In markets where the performance is not good, they don't see the value, so they don't pay. It's actually quite straightforward. And it was before COVID. It was during COVID. Of course, it was a bit crazy with all the PPEs and rushing to work during the lockdowns. And after COVID, we see the same thing. The challenge for our side is, of course, again, in markets where we struggle to recruit, is to maintain that operational excellence.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I agree. It's people will start to walk away, or they'll start to look alternatively if the value isn't there. Now, as far as the benefits of being within the ASA structure, Sally, I know you'd probably like to answer this one, and I know I'm going to enjoy your answer.
Being part of the ASA structure is the reason why it's so important is because we have really quite dynamic and very experienced executives on the board, and their viewpoint on the industry is amazingly broad, and it really helps establish that link that in the supply chain on how very important this segment of the business is. And I think we've all learned through COVID, if you can't get employees to come to work, we can't get your airplane out, right? So it's so simple. And I think when we talk about how do we look at that recruitment, and we spend a lot of time talking about that pain point, we need to start at the very beginning of the journey of the employee to their work site. There are some pain points along that journey. Janis already talked about the regulatory part of getting your badge, but just think about parking off-site at an airport, taking a shuttle to the airport, getting through the security checkpoint, getting down to your work site. It's a very, very long process. So as airlines look at customer service experience, at ASA, we are challenging to look at the employee experience on their route to work, right? There's some simple things that we can do to make that better.
Yeah. No, there is. I agree. And Sally, just on that, and we mentioned earlier when we were just catching up before we went live, other associations. So when you look at ACI, I've always maintained that the next big positive disruption or change that's going to take place is when ACI and the ground handling, the cargo handling organisations come together and realise that the two of them are the ones that are going to stay no matter what happens. So,
that's exactly Right.
Carriers can fly in, carriers can fly out, but
right.
airport and the ground handling, if they get together and have a commitment or a quality charter or a guideline charter, they can make such a difference, which will attract carriers of the future.
I'm excited to tell you that we have a deep relationship with ACI, and we partnered with them to provide a ground handling agreement for airports. And it is on their website, and it was equally crafted by ground service providers that are part of ASA and the airports, because the airports look to the ground handler because the airlines might not be there. We are standing in their shoes. We are their representative. When there's a diversion at night and there's no one on the tarmac, they're going to come looking for an ASA member.
Yep. No, that's true enough. Yep. No, that's well done. And Janis, let me ask you, if I may, why would you recommend ASA membership, to one of your colleague organisations within the ground handling business?
Because that is absolutely the best way to shape the future of our industry, of our sector. We see no alternative. If you are, particularly if you are small, medium-sized ground handler, that is your opportunity through ASA, where we have all equal voice, no matter how big or small you are, to shape the regulation of the future. We have so many challenges to address. We discussed about employment, but we have to address the transformation to the green handling. Yeah, we have to address how we are appealing to Generation Z. Yeah, we have to address how we were going to tackle the regulation that's coming from ICAO and ASA. There are so many challenges to do, and the only way you can be part of it instead of just being observer is to become part of ASA.
Okay, that's a good pitch for new members out there who might be listening or will be attending in Athens. So appreciate that one. And coming back to you again, Sally, what have been the most positives from your experience with ASA and benefiting with your organisation as well?
I totally believe it is the influence that we can have with IATA and the ACI groups. Those are the groups that we need to work with, and that we can influence regulations and not be just on the receiving end of a new regulation that has not been well thought out, right? That might not be practical because they did not seek input. So I think that is certainly what we can do the very best for our members.
Okay, very good. Well, one thing, I was talking to some people last week, and one of the things we were talking about associations, and they were talking about how difficult it is to get common understanding and support for a particular issue from so many people that are involved. And some were sympathetic towards IATA's problems with so many carriers, et cetera, but others were saying in many cases things should just happen once it gets over a certain level of support and not wait for 100%. Would you agree with that there are some areas that the industry would benefit from doing quickly rather than waiting for everybody to agree with?
Yes, I do. I think if there's a majority rule, we should go forth, right? We should take that initiative and run with it. And if there are people that choose not to participate, they choose so at their own peril, right? I think we've really looked at all the regulations and how it affects our members, and I think we're best suited to work with those associations to go forward.
Yeah, no, I agree, Sally. I think it's always better to run and learn rather than stand and wait. To just get knocked over. Now, Janis, as far as ASA is concerned, and being influential for the future change and transformation, and a culture that's necessary post-COVID, what do you think that culture should be with regard to the ground handling organisations?
I think that the culture should be that we are much more collaborative among ourselves. Let's start with ourselves. As I said, we represent the local community together with airports. So how can we, create more sustainable environment at that airport, at that location? I think quite often we see that, everyone's for themselves. And yes, we are competitors, but when it comes to generating benefit for the community, we're not. We should be partners. And as well, I think when it comes to the future of ground handlers, there will be much more technology that would come in. The ramp still needs to be digitalized fully and automated. And I think we need to go through the same transformation on the air side as what's happened above the wing on the land side. Full self-service process basically now throughout the whole process.
Yeah. No, there's an awful lot to do. And then, okay, so let me ask you one thing now. One of the areas that I've always tried to get involved in whenever I've had the opportunity was you've got individuals who do their job. So they always know where they go to. And that's their job. And they either enjoy the job or they get frustrated with the job or they don't like it or there's lots of different reasons. But I think this is an opportunity now after COVID to start upskilling, reskilling, cross-skilling. So people have got a different perspective and they understand what the role is that comes before theirs and what the impact is of them with the role that comes after. And especially when you're looking at some of the less hospitable locations around the world and lots of manual work, there's a chance to give people the opportunity to see what it's like administratively before theirs and administratively after theirs. And then they've got better asset value because they can do many more different jobs. What are your opinions on that?
I think it's a great retention strategy as well, because young people get bored quite easily these days by doing the same thing. And I also think by providing context as to what happens before and after helps tremendously on the business side. And keeps people interested in a job and move on to see what's next. Yeah.
Okay, Sally?
Yeah, I would add to that too, that I look at our stations. We're in about 50 airports in the US and Canada, and I look at them as little franchises. And is the best job that you could possibly have at the airport is to run your own little franchise. If you call it a general manager or station manager, but we look to advance our employees up through leadership and give them that opportunity to get into management. And we teach them the business, not just pushing back airplanes, but the value of the business and how to run a budget and how to manage labor. So there's a lot of business applications that will really help them in their life journey and certainly in their journey with their ground service provider.
Yeah, no, 100% agree. Now, something which, I don't know, I might be way off and I might be a bit of a dinosaur, but I also believe that life and influences make people go from one extreme to an extreme, and then you get a little bit of correction and balance and it comes back. And whilst everybody at the moment, and I've heard a lot of senior people, they talk about the youngsters, they talk about whether it's Generation Z or whatever, and they keep focusing on that, but there's still a lot of people that are not in that category who want to get the respect and the credibility, and they need to see that, you know, some of these new groups that everybody's trying to swing to, that they have to show a little bit of patience as well, and also a little bit of certain disciplines. And, you know, when I hear people saying, you know, we have to communicate with the new generation in a TikTok fashion, there's an answer I'd like to give to that, which I wouldn't dare say at the moment. But I just think this little correction level that needs to come back into swing is so important for everybody to focus on. Otherwise, we're going to go either far too left or far too right. And it's also going to cause problems for ourselves of our own being. What do you think of that?
We're certainly all individuals and we shouldn't be labeled, and we don't fit into a 10-year time span.
Love it, Sally. Great. Yeah.
Yes.
Please, Sally, continue, because I'm right there with you.
Okay. Well, you know, I just think, I think the greatest satisfaction I have personally had as a leader is to see development of individuals.
Yes.
People that say, no, I don't want to get into management. No, I've worked the ramp for 3 years and I don't want to talk to people. Give it a try. Go upstairs, work in the check-in. And they said, oh, I appreciate them better. I have greater respect and I do enjoy it. So I just think pushing people a little outside of their comfort zone has brought great rewards.
Yeah. No, superb. And how would both of you like now to see the role of the GHA develop within the next 2 to 5 years, and naturally the hand in glove relationship with ASA?
I'm very sorry, I didn't get that first point. Apologies.
How would either of you, no problem, Sally. How would either of you like to see the role of a GHA develop within the next 2 to 5 years? and naturally within the hand and glove relationship with ASA?
Well, always a seat at the table first. You really have to be invited to, as Janis rightly said, we need to be with all of the associations that are influencing work at the airport. And I think that they will be deaf if they do not bring this very, very important segment of the supply chain. So I think that's first and foremost.
Okay, very good. Good. And Janis? I think that it's, and if anything, during COVID, we've proven yet again our worth and that we are irreplaceable part of the chain. And I think that it's up to us now as the ground handlers, make sure that it's not forgotten in the next crisis. Yep. Because there will be one. We just don't know what it's called yet. Yeah. But that actually we stay at the front of the table, we influence and work with the airports foremost. I think because historically we've been very focused on airlines as our customers, rightly so. Yep. And every customer-centric organization should be. But I think when it comes to a long-term impact of our business locally, especially, the airports are critical because we depend so much on the infrastructure that is there at the airport to actually deliver. Exactly. And that's where the next best industry practices are going to be developed, and also to keep ahead of what's happening in our industry and from external competition. So definitely. With that in mind, what would you two think if it was suggested that ASA should go on a regional and global roadshow?
We do sort of pattern ourselves a little bit on the ACI model, where they have these different chapters that support their regions. And when you say roadshow, I'm not sure what you mean exactly.
Right. What I mean is if right. So let's talk about this conference that's coming up in
Athens. In Athens, right.
Okay, in Athens. What about if ASA decided to do a roadshow in different regions around the world with the sole purpose of selling the benefits of ASA, whether it be common training opportunities, whether it be whatever it is, just to try and really get an explosion of membership within ASA for certain reasons, with a very, very short list of objectives or targets that could be achieved to enhance now the recovery and the comeback better or bring back better approach post-COVID. Do you think that would be well received?
I think
right. Go ahead, Janis. Yeah.
In Athens is our first step. It's our first event.
Yeah.
So why did we came about this was exactly for that reason, because we need to showcase the benefits that ASA brings to the community, and also we are very pleased to see the response also from the top C-level in terms of attendance and representation and support for ASA. For this event, so because that's critical. Yep. And we are quite confident this event will be really good. And what we will do afterwards, if we start to get interest, hey, why don't you come and organize a roadshow in my region of the world? I think we'll be absolutely open to that. But I think right now our focus is solely to get Athens 100% as it should be, because it's a big step for us as ASA, because we've never done our event before.
Yeah. No, I think you're right there. And Sally, anything to add?
Just that I'm really excited about Athens. I think the content is great. I think it's spot on. The agenda's great. As Janis said, we're bringing really high-level talent with the C group. Come on over. It's going to be great.
That's it. Come on over. That's the way to do it. Exactly. Okay, right, now we're coming to the end. We only wanted to have a little short half-hour slot. So we've mentioned Athens, we've mentioned ASA, we've mentioned ACI, and the way the relationship there could have a huge impact. Is there anything else either of you would like to just finish on, which may be covered in Athens or maybe should be covered in Athens, that would be of interest to anybody listening?
I do think we also have the relationship with IATA, and they will also be present in Athens. And so we've reached out to all of our industry partners to engage with ASA, and I think that will be delightful.
Okay, lovely. And Janis?
I think that it's what's different. What we're trying to achieve here is that it's not just the ground handlers meeting the airlines. We're actually trying to get all the stakeholders together. So that's why the regulators, the airports, the airlines, of course, and all the community comes together. And this is not a conference about buying or selling. This is actually a conference about moving the industry to a better place.
Yep, good man. Good man. Well said. Right, guys. I want to.
And we should mention quickly. I'm so sorry, but we should mention quickly that another partner that's great to us and a great supporter is the Ground Support Equipment Group. Yep. So we'll also be present in Athens, and they're obviously a very important relationship for ASA.
Yeah, no, 100%, 100%. Especially you mentioned earlier about the green issue, and I think it's very difficult times to be talking about the planet. I mean, obviously it's so important, especially I'm sitting here in the UK. We've never had temperatures. We've broken records this morning of being over 40 degrees here in Heathrow. So everybody's going into panic about it. But I think the realities are, it's people, profit, planet. If the people aren't focused and the organisations aren't making returns, it's very difficult then to invest in the planet. So when you look at airports as well, and everybody's talking about going electric, I mean, most of them don't even have the capability or the power surge to satisfy what people could possibly do. So, there has to be realities there as well.
Indeed.
Yes, and that's why the GSC providers and the airports are critical in this particular play as well, because, we have crisis and we will have crisis, but there's no bigger crisis than this, I would say.
Yeah.
That's not going away.
Yeah, no, I agree. And also the repercussions from it and the way in which we responded to this particular crisis. And on that, one of the things that I've always been really, really, I think, open and positive about is pooling. And I think now more than ever, as we get involved with having to do more with less, coming from an airport perspective and being sort of master of its own ecosystem, if they were able to provide certain pooling opportunities, I think then it would be a much, much better and more cost-effective approach to what we did. And when I'm talking about pooling, I'm talking about having a reservoir of multi-talented personnel that could be called upon when there were shortages with equipment, whether it be hard stand equipment or freestand equipment. I just think now is the chance and the opportunity to get involved in that.
Yeah. There are a lot of models for pooling before COVID, and they seemingly had to be abandoned during the crisis. So hopefully we will return to building back better, as one of you gentlemen said. Right?
Yeah. Okay, lovely. And Janis?
Yeah, pooling is the future anyway. I'm sure it's not future everywhere, but the congestion is back sooner than we thought it will be. Which was one of the reasons to do pooling in the first place. And if you add sustainability to it, there will be a strong drive for sure.
Yeah. No, I think that's the word that's necessary now. So I've been on 7 flights now in the last 10 days. And 5 of them were delayed and 2 were cancelled and rescheduled. And on one, when we landed, we had to sit on the aircraft for another 35 minutes because they said there wasn't enough ground equipment, because there was aircraft that came in out of schedule and the ground handler wasn't able to support the volume of aircraft. And then on another, it was to do with the security at the airport. So the whole industry now, has got to start supporting each other in the various steps, because it's not good for one to be rebounding or recovering faster than the others can actually accommodate. So it's a holistic issue we've got to get together.
Yes, I fully agree. And we should stop finger pointing, but actually get together and work out a solution, because we all win when it works and we all lose when it doesn't.
Indeed.
Well said.
Indeed. Yeah, we all win when it works. Janis, I might buy the T-shirt, son. I really like that one. We all win when it works. Yeah. Listen, guys, thank you so much for your valuable time, for your comments and feedback, and also for your commitment to the conference in September in Athens. So hopefully there'll be a lot of people there and they'll get the benefits, and I look forward to seeing you both there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. See you in Athens.